Hello, everybody. We'll be starting here shortly. If anybody has questions during the webinar, feel free to throw them into Q&A, and we will make sure to answer them at the end or during the middle if it has something to add or contribute to some of the things that we're talking about. We'll make sure that we try to answer them as they come. Okay, so we're coming up on time here, so let's get started. So my name is Brad Savarino. I am the COO at Realnets. I have a BS degree in computer science, and I started out as an intern at Realnets. I don't even know how many years ago at this point, 6 or 7 maybe. And I have been doing this for a little bit before then. I really like data analytics, and I really like math. So I would say that the e-commerce analytics marketing side of things is kind of home for me. I was doing development for a pretty long time, and I would say that it's kind of home for me as well. But like I said, I'm pretty good with analytics, so I started moving into operations and things like that. And we have Marissa and Jim here with us as well. Marissa is our VP of marketing, also very good with analytics, and has been doing this for a pretty long time. Jim is our director of web services, and Jim has been with the company since it started 21 years ago and has been in the web industry since then. I would say that it is uh, great to have such a team behind us. We've been doing this for a very long time, and I think that the commonality between all of us is that we really like helping small business. It is the driving factor behind what we do. It without question, it's something that we want to help local business and small business kind of get their feet underneath them. A technology profile is sometimes hard to build or can be rather intimidating. So what we aim to do is we aim to help as many small businesses as we possibly can. So we're going to walk you through some slides. It's a kind of a short presentation. Kind of hope to open it up to everybody if they have any questions about anything, and we'll get started now. So making the switch to e-commerce, the biggest thing here is brick and mortar is starting to see a reduction in foot traffic, obviously because of COVID-19. The biggest issue with losing foot traffic, in my opinion, is you start to lose a lot of the window shopping that you typically get. And sometimes losing that equates to a loss of sales. So being proactive in a lot of ways makes things a lot easier to digest. So if you are going after a certain type of clientele and you know what that demographic is and you know what it is that they're looking for, we have a lot of different suggestions on how to help and make a little bit more sense for you. So what we're going to be looking at here, I have some notes and an outline here. So the impact of COVID-19 on brick and mortar retail these are just some of the topics that we're going to be covering. Understanding the e-commerce opportunities that are being presented to us at this point, how to change your approach and the platforms that are available to us in the e-commerce world and the execution of putting those in place, as well as all the different third parties that are out there. You have Amazon and Google, and I mean, it seems like the options are somewhat limitless at this point. You literally could post your product in 20 different places, and it's just about whether or not it makes sense for you to spend the time to put the reach out that far. So let's get started. So the impact of COVID-19, um, like I said, no window shopping. The government is really determining what we can and can't do, and how we're going to be approaching it. So figuring out if we're one of the businesses that companies are allowed to come back to, really catering to how they feel and figuring out what people are comfortable with. Some people want everybody inside of the place to wear a mask, and the government at this point has mandated, especially in Chicago, that you need to be wearing something, a face covering of some sort, when you're out and about. And then you have a lot of people that are anti face mask, and they don't want to wear a covering when they're out in public. So it's really hard to navigate kind of the political environment when it comes to some of this. The best suggestion is just to follow what the government's what they're prescribing. Essentially, I mean, we need to stick with inside of those bounds, and it's definitely the safest approach and easiest way for us to hand back to the client an easy answer. It's something that we want everybody to be comfortable, and the easiest way for us to do that is face coverings. Essential goods expanding. So what we're starting to see is that people are limiting their limiting their purchases to essential goods. However, recently, and when I say recently, I mean the last 3, 4, 5 days, and you can kind of start seeing it migrate with inside of the media at this point. Um, People are starting to move towards more mental health and making sure that the things that they have around them are um, something that they can use in a reasonable way. They want puzzles, and they want games, and they want things to keep their kids entertained, and they want face masks that look nice, and they want, the need of people is kind of expanding beyond just food. But with that being said, there's a lot more that's kind of going into it. So let's go to the next slide here. And these are problems that you can't really see in consumer, but you can probably analyze them with inside of analytics of websites and e-commerce and things. Um, but you could see that people are a little bit more somber, and they're a little bit slower to react to things. Um, we also face a lot of economic hardships right now. Google reported 71% of American incomes will be affected by what we're seeing today. I mean, that's such a massive reach. It's really where people are looking to put their money, and how they're looking um, to make sure that their mental health is staying on a positive note, and not declining. There's a lot of job loss and lack of disposable income in this space as well. Um, so it's really about approaching people's fears in a reasonable way, and making sure that we can provide those comforts where we can. And I truly believe that all small businesses can provide something in these moments. There's so many shops in the area that I thought might go under, but watching and interacting with a lot of businesses at this point, it's it's clear to me that if we are to put some effort into where we want these people, um, if we're to put some effort in where we want people to react and how we want them to react, we can actually help modify behavior and push them into a direction where we're making the negatives a positive. So with that, making the switch, what opportunities can be found in the e-commerce space? The biggest one is that you have people shopping 24/7 at this point. It doesn't ever stop. When they're bored, which a lot of people are very bored, it doesn't include or exclude any one particular region. Brick and mortar is very regional. Unless you have a chain of some sort, obviously you are limited to a region. Unless you're selling something that's highly unique, where people are willing to come from a broad area, or you're willing to ship to them from a range of places. So one of the things that we'll go over while we're talking about this is some of the challenges that we face when we're talking about geographic reach, because not everybody is set up to send out to everybody. The shipping of DHL, UPS, FedEx, USPS, navigating rates and making sure that you're getting the best rates. A lot of that stuff is also adds to the intimidation factor. It's part of the e-commerce platform. But if you already need to face the challenges of e-commerce, approaching the shipping and then processing of credit cards and those type of things, and making digital security is important to you. Um, those are more hurdles that you have to figure out. So we're here to try to assist in what that looks like, so it's less intimidating, less difficult to get into. um, with that, the analytics that we can kind of see from people, um, as they come into the website, add things to their cart, and then leave. And it's like, why did they leave? What is it that deterred them? Maybe it was the shipping. Maybe free shipping reduces the amount that people are leaving, the bounces from your cart. So there's a lot of different things that we can see. You can almost see the decision-making process in the analytics, in the flow of pages, going from page 1 to 2 to 3 to the cart, and then bouncing. And it's very interesting. Maybe they're price comparing you to others in the industry. But there's a lot of different reasons that can lead to it. But as you sort through the analytics and you start to figure out what it is that you can do to reduce or help your clients, the better for everybody. Google's entire analytical structure and the way that they're looking at things is really based on how you help your customers, making things easier to access, making the website easier to read, helping them understand what a product truly is and not misleading in an unintentional way. Google rewards you for that in placement, and they help you in their Google Shopping Center. Recently, Google has opened up their Google Shopping to everybody for free. Typically, it's a paid service where you need to pay Google in order to be listed towards the top for Google Shopping. They still offered a paid service in case you want to be boosted to the top of the list. But really, what they're looking at now is they're looking at just making things more accessible to people. They understand that not everybody has a digital platform, or and e-commerce can be intimidating. So they've opened up Google Shopping, which is amazing of them. And you'll start to see a lot of people doing something very similar. Most importantly, you'll be able to meet the needs of your valued customer base. Right now, people can't get out, or they choose not to get out, or they can get out, but there's so many restrictions that the waiting is maybe more dangerous than they intended or want to experience. So making e-commerce available and molding your customer base to what you want them to see, and how you want to present you as a an electronic platform is very important. So just giving them the ability to interact with you and display your products is so important. All right. So everybody's company is going through a lot of different problems. Maybe you're one of the fortunate that got the PPP loan from the government, and you were able to get funding for your people that are working for you. Uh, a lot of people are still going through layoffs and furloughs, unfortunately, and they're figuring out how to manage inventory to make sure that they're not stocking things that people aren't going to buy, or maybe you already have inventory that you're struggling to get rid of. uh, those all weigh into what we're doing here in coming up with a strategy and figuring out what it is that we want to hand to our customers, or maybe the interaction of creating a sale and what we want to hand off to everybody in terms of sale information, or really anything in that space. The sky is truly the limit. So it really depends. There's no one size fits all in any of this. Restaurants, we have customers that are um, they're making the best of what they have. E-commerce is a little bit more difficult and is kind of dominated by things like Grubhub inside of the restaurant space, but using this time to show community is important in a lot of different places. We have, like I said, a lot of customers that are at this point giving food away um, to hospitals or to workers or to the homeless, or a lot of people. You're starting to see the generosity come out in a lot of different companies, um, and that generosity is genuine. It's something that is refreshing to see by the public. The public wants to see that. There's no reason or no shame in taking those things that you're doing for the public and posting about them. Let people know that you're here to help. It helps them understand who they should be supporting, who they shouldn't be supporting. If you're helping, maybe they'll help you and reciprocate in any way they possibly can. And you just need to show them the ways that you would like them to reciprocate. Coming up with different strategies. So there's so many different ways to approach it. And if you're a clothing store and coming up with different ways, maybe you don't have maybe you have distributors that you're working with specifically. Maybe you can do face coverings. Maybe you can uh, create shirts that have a specific message. But coming up with a creative solution for creating a strategy to get people in front of you to kind of start the window shopping on your website. Maybe it's an unorthodox thing that your company typically doesn't do, um, but you want to just draw the attention of people. Playing into what the market is doing currently has always been important in marketing. um, the more you see companies do that, and you'll see that some people play into the last big meme that's come out, and they've created a shirt that has that, but it has nothing to do with the shirt. The shirt is probably minimal profit that's bringing in anything, but at the end of the day, it's drawing them to the website to upsell as much as they possibly can. So creating that solution and displaying as much as you can to the customer for them to see all in one shot is very important. Taking your goods and communicating and making sure that people are seeing the content that you're putting out there is also really important. People seem to be, when I say people, I mean small businesses primarily, they seem to be withdrawing as much as they can from communicating. And really, now is the time to communicate more than ever. You've lost your customer base and they're not coming in, and you're not talking, and you're not seeing your regulars. So adding some of that comfort and giving them a channel to communicate with you has never been more important. Making sure that they understand, hey, we're out of stock on these particular items, but they are coming back, and we're expecting a shipment, and maybe oversharing. Maybe people don't typically understand what your shipment patterns look like, but hey, we get stock on everything on Tuesdays. I expect that we're going to be getting more of this product on Tuesday or Wednesday. Things have been moving a little slow. We can send out another email to everybody. If you're interested, here's a place you can sign up for email. So when we get more product in, if you're interested in knowing what those patterns look like, let us know, and we'll send out an email to let you know when we're getting things in. And they can subscribe and unsubscribe as they feel appropriate. And having that communication open up to everybody is super important. And making sure that they know that you're there for them is very important. Creating some sort of connection. Okay, so we're starting to get into a place where we're going to talk a little bit more heavy on the e-commerce platforms themselves. There are really a couple different shops that you can fall into with inside of the e-commerce. There's platforms where you can go in and create a website from nothing. They have drag and drop editors. You're paying them a monthly fee. Maybe they say that it's a freemium service. Uh, but what you're not seeing is some of the complexities of what e-commerce is at its core, and that is the credit card processing, shipping, stock and inventory, pricing adjustments on the fly, and third-party integrations. Those pieces are critical to what e-commerce is. They are the backbone of what it is. Almost all of the platforms at this point are easy enough to navigate on the backside for you to take any data that you have and throw it in. So if you're talking about Shopify or BigCommerce, there's a lot of different platforms that are out there, but what they're doing is it's not necessarily free. So if they offer free and they're giving you a domain, maybe they own your domain, or maybe they own the content on your website, or maybe they own the credit card processor, or in bed with the credit card processor in some regard. Um, and they're getting a percentage of every charge that comes through. So credit card processor is charging 2% on Visa, MasterCard, 4% on Amex. And then what happens is they take another 2.5% off the top of any sale that happens. So we're talking about a increase in your bottom line and decreasing your overall your profit. So what we're looking at here is how much do you expect to sell? Because at some point you need to weigh the ratio of how much it costs to boot up a website and how much it costs in credit card fees. And what would it cost typically if you're getting a credit card fee from a processor that you're bringing in on your own? So if you have a credit card processor, the fees vary widely. If you need a suggestion for a credit card processor, we have somebody that we trust. We don't have any sort of involvement. We would just pass you over to them. We trust them, and we've dealt with them for a pretty long time. So if you're looking for somebody to trust, let us know. We'd be happy to share that information with you. Um, but the credit card processing piece of it, we're looking at the fee on the backside, the processing fee, the merchant fee. So there's all of that cost built in. That's going to be there regardless of what credit card processor you're using. So it might be Shopify, but Shopify is using a particular merchant, and that fee is going to be there regardless. It's the extra percentage that the third-party freemium services are taking off the top. So if they're taking 2.5%, how much product do you need to sell in order to make it worth it to go to something that you own? So if you take a look at WooCommerce or Magento, you're going to be paying a hosting service, and you're going to be paying paying for something that is you could potentially build yourself. They're not hard to use. They make them as user friendly as possible, and there's so much documentation out there for them. If you're not afraid to read and try to do the DIY type stuff that's out there, they're really easy to get into. You have WooCommerce that's out there. We use WooCommerce. WooCommerce is a platform, a e-commerce platform that's built on top of WordPress. We find that WooCommerce is best for smaller e-commerce sites. It's much more user-friendly than Magento. But the catch to WooCommerce is that it's built on WordPress. So you need to make sure that you're keeping things up to date. Software on a website is much like software on your computer. If you are not keeping Windows up to date or Apple up to date, what you're going to find is that it becomes more and more vulnerable to the world. So the less you update your website, the more vulnerable the data is to hackers. You're also running into situations where it's not as fast. You're not getting some of the features or the newer software that is speeding up the website. The tough thing about navigating e-commerce is that it's really hard to cache a website that's built for e-commerce. And what caching is every time somebody loads a page, we kind of save an image of that page. So the next time somebody goes to that page, it loads faster. But if your inventory is changing and your prices are changing, you don't necessarily want all of that data to be cached. Or if somebody is searching for something, that's using processes to slow things down. And when somebody hits your website and it's slowing things down for everybody on your website. So making sure things scale appropriately is really important. And it's kind of the nice part of owned e-commerce where you're owning the site and you can see, hey, I need more resources. You can migrate the site to something that is more robust. With the third party e commerce sites, some of them have features where you can upgrade how much speed you're getting and how much you're not, or how many concurrent users you have or are available, but some of them don't. And you're just kind of stuck with what it is. So they obviously want to sell, they want you to sell as many things as they can because they're taking a percentage of your sales. So it would be a mistake for them to not help you scale, but some of them don't have the back end that's necessary in order to accommodate that. Whereas WooCommerce or Magento, we can scale up and down on the hosting platform. We can give you your own dedicated server if things are really flying off the shelf. So some people would say that it makes sense to start inside of a third-party e-commerce platform, but the pain at that point is if things are successful and things start taking off faster than you would expect, you're running into a situation where it's hard to pivot to something that's owned e-commerce because now you have to build a website from scratch because the data that's inside of those freemium services or even paid third-party subscriptions, they're owned by that company, Shopify. You can't export your data because it's their software that you're using. You can't export that data. Whereas if you're using WordPress and you wanted to change things, you still have all of the data, all of uh, the um, the store items, all of any items, categories that you have, all that's still built in. Magento is a platform that's much bigger than WooCommerce, and we use it for sites that have a complex taxonomy, somebody that has a lot of categories, subcategories, a lot of choices for products. Um, but again, it's something, Magento's a little bit more difficult to use, but in general, it can handle a lot of data. They even have, I think Magento is now owned by Adobe, uh, and Magento has a paid platform where you can use them to use the premium services. So anything that's been tested or snuffed out goes into their paid premium service. They have a lot of caching built in. Their searches are optimized. Everything is made to move faster, but you need to be selling a decent amount in order to justify using that platform. Otherwise, you're kind of throwing money down the drain. So it really comes down to figuring out how much product you're selling. What is that line of where you think it makes a lot of sense? Uh, it makes a lot of sense to invest in your own platform versus I'm only selling a couple $100. Take the 2%. It doesn't necessarily matter to me. So we obviously, as a web services company in marketing, we always prefer and we always try to push everybody towards owned e-commerce. There's a lot of pros and cons that go along with with owned e-commerce. Um, but what's nice is your data is yours, and that is the most valuable piece to us. Data is what people are constantly striving for in order to put something out on the market. So are we a little biased in this area? I would say, yeah, potentially we are a little biased in this area. We obviously have the expertise and the skill set to get a owned e-commerce website up and running. However, the money for us really is not in hosting or in any of these places. It comes down to uh, keeping the customer satisfied, right? So there's so many web companies out in the world at this point that it's really hard to sit here and justify wanting to go one direction on any one particular thing. Our goal as a web company is to make sure that you stay happy. That's why it's not easy to say that owned e-commerce is for everybody. Sometimes a third party, it's going to be cheaper to get a third party e-commerce website up and running. They're faster to launch. Their support is great, and sometimes it's poor. It really depends on the company. There's a lot of research. We have our suggestions for third party e-commerce if you really wanted to go that direction, but you really need to figure out what makes sense, and if you wanted to double back, what that cost looks like. If you were already invested in a platform, you want to be able to be flexible with inside of your e-commerce store so that the user interface or the user interaction is more fluid. If people are clicking around your website and they're being taken to places that they saw a product and I went back and I can't find that product anymore, it causes a lot of frustration and people bail on the page. And what we call somebody that comes to the website and then they leave right away, it's referred to as a bounce in the analytical world. Um, and the e-commerce stores, typically we can get the bounce rate relatively low if your content is engaging and we're giving people paths to follow. The last thing that we want is little to no interaction from us to them. And we don't want to be in their face yelling, hey, if you have questions, talk to me. It's something that's more passive and to the side. If they want more information, they'll contact you. We just need to make it easy for them to talk to you. So I would say that owned e-commerce is more cost effective in the long term, but sometimes you don't have the money up front to invest, and maybe you need to build funds in order to make this make more sense. So I would say that there's a lot to weigh and a lot to contrast in these spaces. So it's really hard to make a suggestion one way or another. It really depends on your company, and that's the most important part of this whole thing is really determining. So Realnets is open to having conversations. We're offering 30 minutes of a free conversation if you wanted to sit down and just consulting on what your company looks like currently, what your product is. What these sessions end up turning into typically is more business consulting. Um, and that's typically what all of our marketing ends up being as well. Our marketing ends up being a little bit more business consulting because it really comes down to process and making sure that you have the processes in place to make all of this make a little bit more sense. Um, the I would say that when we're talking about well, here, let's go to the next slide here because it's really about the one size fits all, right? So I would say that in talking about the business consulting for your company, we're talking about the product that you're offering, the the different processes that you have in place, and how we get it to move as fast as we can. Recently, there was a company that I've been following. They're not a customer of ours, but I've been watching kind of how they're doing things because it's fascinating to see the ideas that people are evolving with. And delivery seems to be more and more the model that people are following at this point, just out of necessity. So they're making people more comfortable. You order online, you can have a conversation with them, but they're posting every day brand new products that they have coming in, and they're all unique. So what they're doing is they're taking the individual products, they're posting them on Instagram, posting them on Facebook, and people are naturally sharing by word of mouth. They're very individualized in how they do things, but they're delivery services. And what's nice is if you have the processes in place for your customer platform, it's really easy for them to circle back. So, and it's really easy for you to make it more efficient. So some of the companies that we work with today are doing it in a way where Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays are our delivery days. So we're making it so Saturday, Sunday, you can order. We're going to take all of the products that are ordered on that day and we're going to deliver them. So it's 2-day shifts. So on Monday and Tuesday, we're going to deliver everything Monday, Tuesday, and we're going to deliver it on Wednesday. So having a process in place and having that certainty for your customers to follow is probably the most important part. You don't want to sound uncertain on your side. You want to make sure that when they call you and when they contact you, you have it together and you know exactly what you're putting in place. Playing it by the seat of your pants is a dangerous thing, because if you sound uncertain and I can't touch the product before I buy it, but I'm still providing you dollars for your product. If you sound uncertain on your side of the phone, it gives me pause. It makes me question whether or not I want to be purchasing this item from you. Maybe I should just wait until the pandemic is over. And obviously that's not feasible for business. We need to make sure that all of the things that we're talking about here are live and in good order for us to provide to our customers. Um, the process of this is so important. Posting and communicating what the process is also super important. The problem with posting process is that you find that most of your customers don't read it. But being able to have something to refer to is very valuable all in itself. Something that you're putting in an email or on a separate page of the website where it says, please click this before you order anything. We want you to understand what the ordering process looks like. This way, when they call you on Monday and say, hey, where's my product? We go, well, you ordered it today. We said we're Saturday, Sunday. If it's really important to you, we can take that extra effort. We can deliver it today. And that's, just solid customer satisfaction. We're losing opportunities to interact with the customer so they can understand um, how good our customer support is, how much we care for our clients, and we value their business. So being able to deliver or execute on in those places is really important. Making sure that they understand, and that's universal for all companies. Making sure that we can show them the value of doing business with us. It's easy doing business with us. We have our stuff together. We want to make sure that you understand that anything you need, we're here to help you and assist in any possible way that we can. Um, Making sure that you have sales material that makes sense is also very important. Making sure that your coupons, putting coupons out there that make sense for your customers or are fun and interactive for your clients is very important as well. The more that you can engage people, and this is, like I said before, this is generally true in all marketing, figuring out how to engage with customers is difficult. Sometimes we're looking at things that are um, a little out of the box and risky, and we don't know how people are going to respond to them. Take the risk. If it's something that you've been thinking about for a long time, now is the time to take the risk. Now is time to engage with everybody and making sure that they understand, but really staying prepared for your customers and those interactions. um, there are a lot of different chats that are available that you could put on your website that will communicate with your phone. So you don't necessarily have to give out your cell phone, but you can do texting. People are generally more accepting of texting, especially the younger generations. They prefer to text back and forth, so they can communicate with you through text and using the other applications that are out there now. But engaging in the model where you're getting a lot of movement through word of mouth and social media, now you can have a platform that you can put out there and you can point to the item that you've been talking about, and other people can also point to that product and they can share it. That's the power of e-commerce, is using the word of mouth. The whole other piece of what we haven't talked about yet is the third party integrations. So you have your e-commerce platform and you can put marketing behind your e-commerce platform. You can use search engine optimization to try to get your products to the top. But like I said earlier, Google has now provided us a free platform for us to also share our content. And you'll find that the more you play nice with Google, the higher your search results are going to be. So Google has a plethora of rules that are kind of silent and in the background, and that's where marketing companies really kind of come in. They help you understand and follow those rules in some uh, clear but kind of mysterious way, because Google really doesn't post any rules. You have a lot of people's opinions that are out and around the net, but it really is the experience behind it that kind of gives you that information. Um, but you also have Amazon, and Amazon is going to take a cut. So the question is, if you had and this is kind of going back to the third party applications, right? If you have a third party application that's already taking a percentage, and then you wanted to take the product and put it on Amazon for people to find as well, and they're taking a percentage, how much are you actually left with at that point? So having an owned e-commerce platform kind of opens things up a little bit for you to sacrifice cost in other places. So if you take your product and you list it on Amazon, and a lot of these third-party platforms can be integrated with both Magento and WooCommerce. So there's different plugins that you can use with inside of those platforms. And as you're using all of that product, you can blast it out or use APIs, integrations with all these different platforms. You can maintain your product in one place and share it with a lot of different third parties. And that's kind of the pain point of the third party, is that post you want to post it on Amazon, but you don't necessarily want to maintain it in three different places. So the owned e-commerce platforms, and I'm not saying it's just the owned e-commerce platforms, because you can also do this within third parties as well. um, but you can keep one place of truth, one source of information, and have it update in a lot of different places. Now, the challenge with some of that is that it might not display exactly like you want. There might be formatting issues, or say you have a special character that's like a trademark symbol in your text, and as it shares that content over, it turns into a different symbol, or turns into a different set of text. So when it's sitting over on Amazon, the description might look different. You might have lost spaces or enters, so there's no paragraphs. It's just one giant block of text. And maybe when you're going through Amazon, you see a lot of that in other places. And it's because they're not going in after it to modify the content to make it look a little bit more natural. So there's a lot of ways that you can make sure that things are maintained in one place but still look good in others. And those are the pieces of content that you really want to focus on and make sure it looks more natural. So there's some tips and tricks there that need to be paid attention to. The last thing that I think is probably the most, and maybe one of the most intimidating, it's definitely one of two of the most intimidating places. I would say credit card processing is probably the most intimidating, because you have a gateway and a merchant, where the other one is shipping. Do you want to ship outside of the US? What does customs look like? Can you ship to Canada? Can you ship to Mexico? What about Alaska and Hawaii? There's a lot of questions that come in on some of these planes. But what's nice is, if you have a distributor that you're buying from, the chances are the distributor has some sort of spreadsheet to help you. That distributor probably has weights that are included, and you can tack on 10% to the weight for packaging if you wanted to, whether or not that's cardboard or packing peanuts, or the bubble wrap, whatever it might be. If you have something that's specialized, I maintain a saltwater fish tank. It's a small little thing, but it's expensive to keep. Um, but you can buy coral, living coral, on the web, and there's shipping that can accommodate that. And you pay a ton for shipping, almost as much as you pay for the coral in some situations. It's just a matter of figuring out how you can avoid absorbing that cost, and handing it off to the customer in some way. The nice part about right now is delivery services are becoming so plentiful that um, you can make it so that it's contactless delivery, and you can put that inside of your method of shipping. So if you're within the region, and we see that, hey, you're in Chicago and your zip code is conducive to Chicago as well, we're going to allow you to select delivery, or pickup. We can even make it so you can come pick up if you don't want to do delivery. The nice part about delivery and in-store pickup is it kind of justifies the need for you to use some of your employees. So if they're open to using their car and driving a place to deliver things, I mean, it gives you more of a reason to keep more people on and keep people employed. And that's kind of the pride point that Realnets has, is that we've been able to keep all of our employees operational and working and thriving as much as we possibly can. It's the pride point for any small business is being able to help other people around you, whether it's your clients or your employees. Both of them are so valuable to you. It's, finding a reason to keep people active is our responsibility in making sure that those things are being followed through on. So, um, but getting back to shipping, what we're talking about is using zip codes to determine where they are with inside of the US, how we're going to ship that, and what the packaging process. This again goes back to process. It's something that you might not be used to, but making sure we have the correct postage, making sure that we have all the correct information, address verification on the backside. That's all software, and we're taking care of a lot of those things. The interaction with UPS and FedEx and even USPS, you can have a lot of relationships between all of those different companies. So what's nice is once you grab a relationship with FedEx or UPS, there's a part of shipping where you can increase the price by 15%, and it's another way for you to start generating revenue. You can do direct pass through, but when you have an account with UPS or with FedEx, they're going to give you a discount. And maybe you already have that account number. Some companies will not allow you to use the same account number for um, shipping inside of your brick and mortar and also online access. So you would just talk to your FedEx or UPS rep. If you need help getting in contact with them, let us know. We have reps in both UPS and FedEx that we can get in contact with that are very friendly and are great to work with. I believe that that all works based on region, so they might hand you off to somebody else. But if you're within our region, we have regional contacts for that type of stuff. But they will help guide you through getting your the World Ship product installed on your computer with the Zebra printer and all the product that you need to print your labels and get things going. So it's easy to just throw a sticker right onto the package. Getting in contact with a Uline rep to make sure that you have packing peanuts and packing materials, or even seeing if it's justified. If it's clothing, I mean, you obviously don't even need at that point for packaging materials. So some companies make it a little bit easier than others. Places where it's more difficult, I mean, there's booking that you can do. Facebook has a booking feature built straight in, so it's not hard to have people book times where they want to come in. So if you have, I keep on going back to clothing stores, but it's kind of the easiest example in most of what people are contacting us about right now. So I would say that if you have a clothing store, having people, they want to try things on and they want to see it. And Amazon makes it really easy for you to buy clothing and just return it willy-nilly, no problems, no questions asked. But in a boutique store or something that's more small business related, people want to try things on, they want to touch it, they want to see it. So if you create times where you can schedule people to come in and they have a 30-minute window, and you just keep on creating bookings, we can have them come in, try on clothes, and then you don't necessarily need to worry about the e-commerce piece, but you're still digitally available for people to come. And then you have some analytics for people, that how many people have looked at your booking button and how many people are looking in general, and have passed your booking button, haven't clicked through. And why is that? Is the process not clear enough? Do they not feel safe? So there's a lot of different reasons for that sort of thing. But I would say most importantly that making sure that you are available overall to your customers is important. So it's really up to you how far you want to take it. Full e-commerce, partial phone calls, easily being available. What it really comes down to, e-commerce can be a lot of different things. It doesn't need to just be an add cart button that is available to your customers. It can be more communication, or it can be an Instagram feed that has your product that you're constantly listing. It could be a lot of different things. It's just about brainstorming. Um, I would say that if you have questions, um, I haven't been looking at questions. Marissa and Jim are here watching the questions as they come through. But if you have any questions, I'm willing to open it up and kind of go through it. like I said, we're open to doing a free consultation call with anybody to generate questions. Um, we're of course trying to, I mean, in this webinar, we're of course trying to kind of get people interested in Realnets and our service and our expertise in this space, but it's not something that we're expecting. We're generally here to help small businesses, and we want to make sure that there's still small business to come back to after this whole pandemic is over. And what we're seeing now is that people can still thrive in this environment. And it's really about catering to your customers. And it's always been about catering to customers. So that has never changed. It's really more about catering to fears and working with inside of the guidelines that we're being provided. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. I'll open it up and we'll kind of go from there. Do you suggest going to a cloud server web host to start your e-commerce website? It depends on the scalability that you're looking for. I would say that the cloud is kind of a funny, it's kind of a funny thing, right? So what constitutes the cloud in this space? I would say that if you're looking at shared hosting in general, right? Shared hosting is kind of the cloud. It's not a service that you own. It's not on premises. It's not something that you have on a server that's sitting inside of your house. So third parties, I guess, would be more traditionally what you would consider a cloud service because you don't have possession of the software. But I would say that anything that you move into needs to be it needs to be scalable. That's the biggest question here is it scalable? If you could take something that you didn't intend on being this big and blow it up to something that's huge, that is I think that that's probably the most important thing out of everything that's here. Any other questions? Well, I hope that this was valuable, and I hope that you guys, if you have anything, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have and help in any way that we possibly can. I hope that we've demonstrated that here with you. We are going to be doing a few more things in the next uh, couple of days. So Thursday, we have another webinar that's going to be on the same topic, but hopefully we can go through and we can kind of get into some more advanced topics. Marketing of the e-commerce sites is probably one of the more intimidating topics, and I could literally talk all day about it. Anything. Um, oh, I'm sorry, Marissa, I didn't realize that you were muted.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you for unmuting me. I just wanted to pass along a few other questions that I received through the process. One of the main ones was, if somebody is just now kind of getting their feet wet with e-commerce and they are starting from absolute scratch, when they approach you, what do they need to kind of have in hand? Do they need to already come to you with a domain, an own domain? Do they need to have all the professional images already taken? I know we have those resources in-house, but that's kind of a recurring question that people are hoping to get answered is, if I'm coming to you with absolutely nothing already going, what do you need me to approach you with?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of the time, you don't need to approach us with anything. I mean, we could help you through the domain process. Um, I think what really comes down to is that a lot of the time there is issues with people understanding even what that process looks like with the domains and DNS and getting things pointed to a server. And a lot of the times the one of the biggest slimeball areas in web is domain sales. You'll find that people are constantly trying to poach and deceive you. We sell domains, and I could tell you that there's virtually no money in it. We sell domains for our customers at this point. There's so many people that have been taking advantage with these mailers for $120 a year. They'll manage your domain, and it just doesn't make any sense. So, from domain to the hosting to servers, Realnets has we have our own hosting servers, our own VPS environments. We can help you from A to Z. If you need help with getting products, a lot of the time, if you have a manufacturer or distributor that you're working with, they'll have assets available, and you'll just need to know what questions to ask. Uh, but yeah, you definitely could go through and you could definitely go through and talk to them, or we can help you with that. But even the credit card processor, getting you involved with shipping, um, it's easy to say that we're completely non-biased, but until you work with us, it's a little bit, it's easier to show you that than it is to say it out loud. The interaction that we have with our credit card processor is a professional relationship where we send people over to him because it's hard to find a non-shady credit card processor sometimes. So we have those relationships already built out where we hope we can help there. Um, anybody, Marissa, anybody else that I should go through and talk to, or any other questions you think were important?
Yeah. So the final question that I wanted to get to today, there was a question about in terms of owned e-commerce and third-party resources. The question of Grubhub for restaurants came up, and so I think that's something maybe we could follow up on in the next webinar. Kind of branch out into the restaurant niche, but right away, somebody was talking about getting set up on WordPress, and you know when it comes to implementing WooCommerce with WordPress, what kind of restrictions are there? Do they have to have a specific setup on WordPress? What should people keep in mind whenever they're kind of planning their design and their whole setup on e-commerce for the first time?
I would say that when you're looking at WordPress, what you're looking for is a solid theme. Somebody that's been creating themes for a long time, something with a high rating in terms of your theme. WordPress is just the core. So what you're really looking for is, if you buy a bad theme, not only are the tools going to be hard to use, but they are also going to be um, slow. You're gonna kind of see that it takes longer for things to load. So you really want to use a reputable theme. Also, stay away from pro themes. If you want to use it, if you want to do it yourself, don't engage in a professional theme. Those professional themes have a lot of settings that are very intimidating, and can be hard to use. So the less you use those professional themes in something that has a little bit more cookie cutter. Now, if you're engaging with us, we will always use a professional theme. We'll also give you warnings as to places you probably shouldn't travel, but when we build a website, we're giving you complete and total access. You have admin access to your website. Um, so you have the ability to break things if you wanted to, or to fix things if you wanted to as well. So
I
it's
think
really up to you.
that's a really important point for business owners to know, especially if they've never worked with a development team before, they've never gotten into the world of e-commerce before. If you are working with a team, an agency of any kind, one of the main questions to ask on the front end is, how much control do I have over my digital properties? Am I going to be able to navigate this website freely? Whether I know how to or not, whether I should or not, do I have the ability to? Do I have the admin rights? That's such an important question for people to ask. And a lot of times they don't really realize it. And, going back to Vince's question in the beginning, he was asking, I know you already talked about third-party platforms versus WooCommerce with WordPress, but if you absolutely had to go with a third-party service, are you adamantly against that, or is there one that you might settle for in a pinch, if business owners need to do like a temporary solution just to get through this COVID situation? Do you advise against that altogether?
Well, so I don't necessarily advise against it completely. I would say that it really depends. But there are a lot of free platforms that are out there that aren't going to take advantage. Unfortunately, they change somewhat frequently, so there's not a really clear answer. But if you look at something like um, Weebly, or if you look at something like Shopify, they have free plans. What you really want to make sure is whatever the third party is, they all have plans that kind of have gotchas. So what you really need to look at is you need to make sure that the domain that you're bringing, you should bring a domain to them. You shouldn't purchase a domain from them. You don't want to be stuck where you are. You want to make sure that the content that you put in is your content to take out. The photos that you put in are your assets to take out, and that you want to make sure that there's some sort of analytical tracking, because without the analytics, e-commerce almost becomes worthless. If you don't have how people are walking through your website, and there's no webmaster tools that you can enter from Google, there's the inability for you to understand how things are working. Those are the things that you really want to make sure that you have. I could say without question that owned e-commerce, you could do all of those different things with, but it really depends on what the third party is. They are all over the place. And to talk quickly about um, the restaurant, Grubhub, Yelp, those types of things. Um, the restaurant industry has a ton of POS systems that are out there. Some of them have fantastic integrations with different websites where you can order and you don't need to rely on their website. Some of them have integrations directly with WordPress and Shopify and some of these other third parties that are out there. But some of them, it really depends on what you're looking at. Some of them integrate really well into restaurant PMS systems. I'm sorry, not restaurant, hospitality, like hotels and things like that. The POS systems will integrate with the different PMS systems that are around. So figuring out what POS system you have and how well it integrates with other things is really going to answer most of your questions inside of the POS system, inside of the restaurant world. Grubhub is very expensive, and we have a ton of restaurants that are clients of ours. And I'll tell you that the restaurant space is something that is really back and forth on the technology of things, and trying to get away from these Grub hubs and things are it's difficult. People are starting to rely on them. Easy Cater for the catering side. I mean, you want to make sure that you're not starting competition for yourself, and a lot of the times that's what those sites are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear that a lot with our restaurant clients, that they are struggling with, the kind of the balance there of needing to have the presence and needing to, especially in search, the Grub hubs of the world are kind of topping out in Google search, and it's really hard for businesses to compete with. But that comes along with major percentages that they're eating out of, profit margins. So, and in terms of whether we're talking about restaurants or local shops or what have you, there, depending on the business, the local kind of consumer mood in that general area, things are a lot different in New York City right now than they might be in Chicago, for example. So taking all of those things into account and considering it on an individual basis is so important. So, we can give a lot of general suggestions and guidelines to business owners, but it really comes down to that kind of personal consult that we're offering. And, like Brad said earlier, that's completely no strings attached. We have a sincere drive to help small businesses get through this really challenging time. And a lot of these individual questions that are probably coming to mind right now, that would be a great opportunity for business owners to get answers to those questions. Like my local government is not allowing the purchase of X right now because it's not considered an essential item. So how can I work around that? Things like that we can help with. So I really hope that our attendees today will take advantage of that free consult and give us a call and let us kind of offer some guidance.
Absolutely. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, we're a little past. I apologize for going long here, but if you guys have any questions or anything like that, do you see? Yeah, I think that's it. All right. So if you guys have any other questions, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys coming out, and I will see anybody else on Thursday when we do our next one. So thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day.